Alright, man, peace. So for those of you brothers who've been following my channel for long enough, you know that I've stated ad infinitum on this channel numerous times that Dwight Howard is, in my mind, no doubt a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm sure that certain people will disagree, especially due to how Dwight Howard's stock has dropped precipitously in the last 4 years or so. But when you view Dwight Howard's credentials and match them up with other players that are currently in the NBA Hall of Fame, there's no doubt that not only is he certainly a Hall of Famer, but he's certainly a first ballot Hall of Famer. We're talking about a player here in Dwight Howard who was an 8-time All-Star, a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, who won those Defensive Player of the Year accolades in 3 consecutive seasons, 2-time blocks leader, 5-time rebounding leader, 8-time All-NBA. Like, the brother's credentials are off the charts. Well, anyway, they asked Dwight Howard what he felt about his potential to be in the NBA Hall of Fame, and he stated that he does believe that he is an NBA Hall of Famer, and I agree with him. Now, not to digress, but brothers, when we look at this still shot here of Dwight Howard in between his coach and his GM, Ernie Grunfeld, you'll see that he's wearing an Eye of Heru necklace, an Eye of Heru chain. Now, supposedly, Dwight Howard comes from a Christian background, allegedly. But once again, as I tell you brothers all the time, the top level of all sports stars are Luciferian. They have to be. They get initiated into the Luciferian rites once they're introduced into the professional sports sphere, and they have to make sure that they pay diligent attention to the things that they learn and the rituals that they must adhere to, or they will not be in the league for long, in whatever respective league it is. NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, professional boxing, what have you. Once they get to that top level, they are Luciferians.
Talk about Dwight Howard.
Yes, Dwight, a black man.
Yeah, talk about a black man that some people are trying to keep down. Because for years, a lot of people have been arguing the merits of Dwight Howard's career. Does he belong in the Hall of Fame?
It's like one of the hot debates right now.
Yeah, he's
I think it's only a debate for people who don't really know the history of basketball, the history of the NBA in particular, and who willfully don't want to remember how dominant Dwight Howard was from the late 2000s into the early 2010s. Like, Dwight Howard was unbelievably dominant. This is a person who led his team to the NBA Finals in 2009, a team that was not expected to get to the finals. They defeated LeBron James in the second round. They defeated the world champion Boston Celtics in the third round, and then got to the finals and were actually able to defeat the Lakers in one game, a Laker team that had won something like 65 games in the regular season. Dwight was an incredible force for about a 5 or 6 year stretch.
By the numbers, he belongs to the greatest of all time.
I don't think there's any doubt about it.
But a lot of people say because he's not the most liked guy, he's a little...
I think he might actually be the most hated, not liked, the most hated guy in the NBA.
Dwight Howard's problem is that he's probably the most immature player in the NBA since Shaquille O'Neal, at least the most immature, uber-talented NBA player since Shaq. And he's not as physically dominant as Shaq. So now that his physical aspect has started to diminish, suddenly people's true feelings are starting to come out about him and what they're not willing to tolerate from him in the locker room. Because what people tolerate from you is normally directly correlated with what you bring to the table.
There have been articles about how people don't like him in the NBA.
I don't know any star of that caliber that has less friends around the league than Dwight Howard. That's a fact.
So will that affect, does he belong enshrined with the greatest basketball players of all time? We asked him, by the way, I want to give a little bit of stats before we go into this clip. 8-time NBA All-Star, 5-time NBA First Team, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and he's averaged a double-double over the course of his career.
First team All-NBA.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible numbers.
Yeah, he was the most dominant center in the NBA from about 2007 to about 2012, 2013. No doubt about it. And for those of us who remember that time period, that was when Shaquille O'Neal spent most of his time trying to troll Dwight Howard, because Shaq, being the insecure person that he was jealous that Dwight Howard was making people forget his legacy in Orlando, because Shaq never won anything in Orlando. As a matter of fact, when you compare Dwight Howard's tenure in Orlando with Shaquille O'Neal's tenure in Orlando, one can certainly make the case that Dwight Howard had a bigger impact while he was with the Magic than even Shaq did. Because Dwight Howard was there longer. He also was able to lead a team to the finals, even though they lost. They actually were able to win a game, unlike Shaquille O'Neal's team in 1995. And Dwight Howard was a far more dominant defensive player than Shaquille O'Neal was.
But again, a lot of people are saying, he never really won a championship, and he doesn't really bring his teammates to the next level.
Right, been on a lot of different teams.
Yeah, so we asked Dwight if he feels he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and this is what he said.
When it comes to centers and big men in the NBA, what do you think you rank, and what do you think your chance of being like in the Hall of Fame player?
I don't really, concern myself with what, a lot of people say about me. My resume speaks for itself. Of course, I played with, a couple teams, and that's what they do. I think this will be my final destination. I can't really say about rankings. I don't really get into it. But like I said, I know what I've done this NBA within my career. I think I've been pretty successful. We've all had downfalls, but I'm not really concerned with it.
That sounds like a man who's very confident he's going to be inducted.
He should be confident that he's going to be inducted because he deserves to be. In regards to Dwight Howard playing with a multitude of teams in the NBA, we have to consider that in this era, it is far more common for players to play on more than one team. Even the best and second best player in the NBA, LeBron James and Kevin Durant respectively, have played with more than one team. Of course, people are going to say, well, that was their decision. They were free agents. Well, for the most part, Dwight Howard has signed with different teams over the course of his NBA career. So it is what it is. At the end of the day, this era is going to be considered the era of player movement and player mobility. So I think that we have to extricate that component out of the equation when we're evaluating how potent certain players were and how important they were, particularly in their prime. Because when we consider Dwight Howard and his Hall of Fame viability, we're going to be examining his tenure with the Orlando Magic. And during his time period with the Orlando Magic, he was without a doubt the best center in the NBA and considered one of the top 3 players in the entire NBA during that time period. He was incredibly dominant. I remember one game he had in Orlando when they played the Knicks in the Garden, where he had something like 40 and 25. Like, he was just unbelievable.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
This is why people don't like him.
Why?
Well, I just thought he was super cool there.
Yeah,
I was about to say, wow, he was really chill with us.
Because, man, he's supposed to say, listen, I'm going to the Hall of Fame. I'm, like, is he always trying to put a good face? Like, he's supposed to say, listen, I'm going to...
The reason why he's not going to say that is because he knows that if he were to say that, that's going to make waves all over many of these sports networks. You're going to have people like Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith trying to give him a hard time and possibly even trying to cut into his chances of getting into the NBA Hall of Fame. And I think that deep down, Dwight Howard knows that he has not quite succeeded to the level that he would have hoped he would have succeeded to at this point in his career. He's 32, 33 years old. He's still not over the hill yet, but he's no longer considered a primetime player. And eventually, he'll probably be considered a backup on most teams in the league. His best years have passed him by, so he knows that it really would not suit him to speak in that way. He's not considered an elite player anymore. Of course, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, they can say, yes, I'm going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And even though Dwight Howard will most likely be a first ballot Hall of Famer as well, he knows how he's perceived and it bothers him.
Going to the Hall of Fame was then boom, 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 boom. That's it. Don't say you're not concerned with it because we know that you are. I feel like really it's a lot of the off the court stuff that makes people sour on him. He's done more than enough on the court to get in the Hall of Fame. I didn't think so.
Well, the fact of the matter is that Dwight really doesn't have that much off the court baggage. Now, for those of you brothers that don't know, I'm sure that most of you know, he does have an issue with baby mama drama, but that's a whole other story for another day. In regards to on the court, a lot of the bad aspect of Dwight or his bad reputation started when he went to the LA Lakers. And that was because he had to team up with Mr. Kobe Bean Bryant, who was still trying to catch Michael Jordan at the time, and allegedly thought that he was going to, quote unquote, teach Dwight Howard how to win. I have no idea how Kobe Bean was going to do that when it was actually Phil Jackson that was the most important portion, the most important component to the Lakers winning championships in those championship years. Kobe Bryant has never truly had a high understanding on how to lift his teammates up, at least not in a way that will be beneficial for all parties involved. So that's why I think that Kobe's best in doing what he's doing now, acting as a coach for certain individual superlative talents who could receive his lessons. Kobe's not the type of person who's going to be able to help a Dwight Howard. Dwight needed to have a Phil Jackson there so that Phil Jackson could police Kobe, because that's what Phil Jackson did so well. He moderated Kobe Bryant. And when Phil Jackson was gone, basically Kobe Bryant had the keys to the entire house. And that's why they were not able to do anything in regards to winning after Phil Jackson left. And Dwight knew that. That's why he was a big advocate of Phil Jackson coming back as opposed to Mike D'Antoni. Kobe Bryant did not want Phil Jackson to come back because by that time, I believe that he and Phil Jackson had fell out again. And Kobe was done with Phil. Phil utilized a lot of psychological machinations that eventually wear players down. And I think that Kobe was done with Phil. I think that Phil was done with the whole LA experience. And Kobe wanted to have Mike D'Antoni because he knew that Mike D'Antoni was an offensive coach who was going to allow him to jack up as many shots as he wanted. And that was not conducive to a Dwight Howard being as great as he could have been. And still, in his short time with the Lakers, he averaged 18 and 13, coming off of a major back surgery.
To that point, we talked to Chandler Parsons, a guy who played with Dwight at one point in his career.
Chandler Parsons. This guy might be one of the biggest, most overhyped players in the NBA in the past 15 years. He spends more time chasing models than he does chasing improvement for himself.
What do you think?
Future Hall of Famer himself.
Yeah, here's what Chandler Parsons said.
Hey, you think Dwight Howard's a Hall of Famer? He says his resume speaks for himself. 100%. He was the best center in the NBA for like 10 years.
Yeah, I mean...
I agree with that. I'm not sure about 10 years, but certainly about 6 or 7 years, he was the best center in the NBA and most likely one of the top 3 players in the NBA.
I mean, that's a pretty solid statement from Chandler right there.
You look at the numbers, he's a Hall of Famer, but, man.
The question is,
visit his bust.
The question is Chandler Parsons in the Derek Jeter Hall of Fame?
Oh, he definitely
Yes.
He is. He's first ballot, right? Give me some more guys. Which other guys out there are in the Derek Jeter Hall of Fame?
I see what you're trying to do, Van.
I want to know.
You're trying to turn the mood light.
I'm trying to...
You've wounded us too deep.
But anyway, that's basically it on the Dwight Howard portion of their conversation. Yes, Dwight Howard is a Hall of Famer, and he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Do I believe he's going to get in on the first ballot? I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. I think that Dwight Howard is right there in that Chris Webber class of players that was dominant for a short period of time, but for whatever reason, people have an issue with him, so they're probably going to keep him out for a couple of years. We'll find out. But anyway, peace.